back to another episode of the One Tree Hill Rewatch here on the Filmaholic channel. I'm your host, Matthew. Host, guide, whatever you'd like to call me. I am the owner of this channel. If you guys want to follow me on any other social medias, I got Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. You can all find me there. But yeah, this is the episode of the One Tree Hill Rewatch. We'll be talking about the Season 2 finale. Technically, we're talking about the episode before the finale and the finale, but I pretty much consider it to be one and the same because they both came out on the same night. I remember as a kid watching both of these back to back. So the first one we want to talk about here is episode 22 of season 2, 222, The Tide That Left and Never Came Back. This was written by Thomas J. Wright and was it was directed by Thomas J. Wright and written by Mark Schwann, the creator of the show, who of course would come and do the finale, especially when it's a two-part finale and it's an epic event as far as the show goes. There's other finales, especially in season 3, that are definitely, well, there's other finales that are definitely better, let's say that. But this is definitely one of the biggest finales, I think. The biggest cliffhanger. Season 3 has a big moment too, but it's, and there's a lot more lives in danger and stuff in that season and, even in future seasons, but the events that happened in the season 2 finale, it was one that I kept thinking about all summer. What was going to happen, who was responsible for the dealership fire? That was the main thing. Was Dan dead? Was he not dead? Who did it? All this different stuff that stayed in my mind as a kid and really got me into television and that type of storytelling. So first I want to say this episode 22, the episode which is not technically the finale, it's the one before it, but they aired the same night. 22 is not as good as I remember. It's still a good episode, it's fine, but it's not as good as I remember. I didn't love it as much as I remembered. And part of that is some of the writing, right? I have a big problem in this episode with Dan forcefully kissing Karen, which is like sexual assault, pretty much. Well, it is. It's uncomfortable to watch. Definitely not something that should have been in the show, and not something that I personally agree that Dan would do. And that's, a big issue because that makes you see Dan in a little bit of a different light. Even though they don't really touch on this moving forward after this episode, they bring it up in season 3. But then beyond that, it's just forgotten, and he's just not that. I don't think they write certain things, especially in this episode, and even moving forward into season 3, that I've noticed when we'll talk about that when we get there, that they write with Dan that I don't think fits his character, and they were just doing it to make him seem more like a villain, especially at this point in the show. In the finale here, we know, if you've seen the show before and you're rewatching this with me, you know the dealership fire happens, someone tries to kill him. So, doing all this awful stuff that he does in the episodes, it makes you as an audience be like, yeah, he deserves that type thing, and making you hate him even more, especially when you go into season 3 and some of the choices he makes. In that season, I still don't think fits the character, because with Dan, who is my favorite character, most of the awful things he does are motivated by certain decisions or certain things, like Keith, stuff that he went through with Karen and Deb and all these different things that lead him to make these decisions. The forceful kiss was poor writing. I don't think there was. Would he make comments to her about certain things? Sure, but would he actually forcefully kiss Karen like that? No, I don't think that he would. I think it was poor writing. And then when you think about who wrote the episode and how he is as a person, and now that we know that, it makes it even more uncomfortable. So there's certain things that definitely happen in the course of the show, especially with Dan's writing too, and things that they brush over that really bothers me now, and that's one of them. One thing I did like about this episode was the class essay about loss. I thought that was great writing. It introduces you to the episode and carries you throughout it. Each one talking about how they lost themselves or they lost whatever this season, or this semester, this school year. Thought it was great for this episode, great for the finale, and it fit all the characters wonderfully. We also have in this episode that Nikki finds Jenny and causes Jake to leave Tree Hill to go after her. Jake was in prison, and she brings... That's another thing. I don't know how she got into the prison with the kid and got away without no one stopping her, but the cops are incredible in Tree Hill, as you can tell, especially moving into other seasons as well. And this is the last we see of Jake for a while. Like, if you've seen this show before, of course, he does come back later in season 3, but not for a big part. I actually think it's slightly odd how they handled Jake, how they built him up to be such a big character in season 2, and I'm glad we did see him again, but the way he left was so abrupt, and I felt like they should have done a little bit more with him in season 3. I'm not upset about it really, because he's not one of my favorite characters, but I feel like they could have done more with him, and I definitely think Jake should have brought back in the adult years. I'm not sure if that was a decision, just a creative decision, or if that was him as an actor not wanting to come back, but definitely think Jake Jagielski should have been in probably, I don't know, I don't, there was a lot going on in 5 and 6, so I don't think that he would really fit in there. And then I guess you could argue, well, Peyton was gone after season 6, so what was the point of bringing Jake back? Because his main relationships were with Peyton and Lucas, and they're gone. I think you still could have brought him back. There's season 8, and we'll get to that when we get to it, is the worst season of the show. A lot of lame stuff going on in that season, to be honest. I would have much rather you brought Jake back and created a whole storyline with him in season 8 and reconnected him with Haley and Nathan and had a storyline there, and then Mouth, whatever, and then built whatever up with him and maybe some other characters, maybe a love interest that we finally get for Jake, and see an older Jenny and all of this. I think that would have been really cool, but that's just me talking about Jake and not about this episode, so let's get back to that. So we also have Lucas and Brooke go to see Haley in New York in the episode. And there's some conflict with Chris Keller. He says some uncomfortable things to Brooke as well, which goes back to the writing and who wrote this episode, and I'm not really a big fan of that, to be honest. But Haley tells Lucas in this moment that she's not coming home, right? She gives Lucas the annulment papers that Dan brought her from Nathan. And this, to me, or it sets it up as, she is not kind of like, this is the end. But of course we know that she ends up coming back in the next episode, the finale. So I don't really know, what happened. We see little bits and pieces of her missing Tree Hill, but she made that decision in this episode to not come home. So at that moment you think that she would have signed the annulment papers, but she doesn't actually. She writes, "I love you." You find out that later, I think in season 3. So I'm not sure what her mindset was at that moment, if she just wanted a divorce and not an annulment, or what she was thinking, but that's a little bit interesting. This is Andy's last episode as well, for a long time. He obviously does come back later in the show, but not in the high school years. So he leaves. He's going to have trouble getting back into the States because of Dan. He's going to see his mom in New Zealand, and he invites Karen to go with him, who does go with him. And there's a lot of other little interesting things, like where was Andy at when she kept calling the hotel that he was supposed to be at and he wasn't there? Because obviously they set little things like that up, and Karen seeing Keith as well, and different things like that they set up to make you wonder who was the person who started the dealership fire. Obviously it wasn't Andy, which also brings me to another point that I'm thinking about. How does Andy, who owns the company who installed the security camera, not know who the person who started the dealership fire was? And what happened to that footage? All that's really interesting to me too, but it's never talked about again. So Andy also finds out in this episode where the ledger is, which ultimately leads Lucas to getting the ledger and then taking it to Deb. But that's in the next episode, which we're about to get into, which is episode 223, The Lever's Dance. And this is the definitive season 2 finale. Also, both of these episodes aired on May 24th, 2005. So and just while I'm talking about it too, because I don't think I've mentioned this before, kind of how my mindset goes of when these episodes are taking place. I would say, because we know the years they came out weren't really when they took place. So, like, I think season 1 and 2, which is one school year, took place in the year 2004, 2005, and then 3 and 4, which is their senior year, took place in 2005, 2006. Because we know from gravestones and stuff moving forward, something happened in 2006, so that is definitely the definitive year they graduated. And then moving forward in other seasons, they tried to have different things. I think, like, at one point the graduation says 2007 because that's when it aired. No, 2006, but whatever. So this episode, the finale, was directed by Greg Prange, who directs most of the big episodes, the finales and everything, until the point where Mark starts doing that himself. And then after that, Greg still directs big episodes that Mark doesn't do. So I believe the first episode that Mark Schwann directs is the season 3 finale, I believe. But we'll get to it when we get there. But I'm pretty sure that's the first episode he directed. And until then, Greg directs most of the big episodes, like the season 2 finale. So in the season 2 finale, Nathan gets like tired of Lucas snooping on everyone and being like this little Sherlock Holmes guy that he is. So he gets upset about it because he also talks to Deb when she gets out. Well, actually, Dan talks to Nathan, and Dan tells Nathan that Deb's pill addiction started when Nathan moved out. Which, this is the type of stuff that, while it's terrible, I think Dan would have done, because it's motivated by him keeping his son there at the house and trying to get his family back. Doesn't mean it's right, but I'm saying that I think this is what he would have done versus something that was unmotivated and was out of character for the attention of the viewer at that moment, and I think that was annoying. So Nathan's tired of Lucas snooping because he wants his family to be back together. He wants his parents to be back together. You know, Haley's gone, so he needs that. And until, of course, Deb gets out of rehab and has a conversation with Whitey about high flyers and the fact that Nathan's not going because he wants to stay there with Deb. And Deb, tells Nathan, "Hey, I didn't start taking pills because of you. Like, I want us to be a family, not Dan." So at that point, they come up with a thing where they're getting out, and then Deb has the ledger now because Lucas gives her the ledger, which ultimately she confronts Dan about it, and of course everything is in both their names. So if she turns Dan in for this criminal activity that he's been doing, she's going to prison too. So that idea's a dud now. And this is mentioned to Nathan when she's explaining to him kind of what happened. So then Nathan gets mad, obviously, at Lucas because he told him, or asked him as a brother and a friend, to stop spying on Dan. So then at that point, by the end of this episode, well, the first time Nathan confronts Lucas about it, he finds the annulment papers that Haley gave Lucas to give to Nathan, which also Lucas lied about, said he didn't go to see Haley. Now it's coming out that he did. Further upsets Nathan. By the end of this episode, Nathan says, "We're not brothers. We're not being friends anymore. Next year, when the season or when the basketball season starts, we're on the same team." That's it. Which, sets what their relationship is going to be in season 3, which is not liking each other very much. Kind of back to way. I wouldn't say the same way as season 1 because Nathan is so much more mature and developed as a character now, but not getting along wise, definitely look more like season 1. But Nathan is very more focused in season 3 and not this same type of character he was in season 1, obviously. So Ellie's also introduced in this episode. Didn't really know what was going to happen with her at first when I first watched it. But then it's revealed that she is Peyton's mom, which throws a wrench in the show because at this point we didn't know that she was adopted just like her. Which, when she says that, I guess a lot of people, the assumption was who was this other woman that died, or was she adopted? Both her parents, not her biological parents. Turns out it wasn't. Ellie is her biological mother, and we get a whole storyline with that in season 3. But another thing that's introduced in this episode is the Watch Me, Watch You storyline, which is not existent in season 3. I think it's very cool they had that in their minds and set it up in this finale, because she thinks it's Ellie, it's not. We find out obviously who it is in season 4, and then they bring it back, and I wonder, was this the plan all along? Was that the plan, to bring it back in a future season, the Watch Me, Watch You thing, or was it just something they randomly put in there to be some weirdo on the internet and not even touch on it? Because the show could have ended in season 3. The season 3 finale could have been the end of the show, and we never would have found out what this meant. Which, I mean, is not a big pressing issue. If the show had ended, that's not the main thing I'm going to go to and be who was that person on the computer? But it is an interesting thing, what the idea originally was about that. So Karen leaves in the episode as well. She goes to New Zealand, and Lucas admits to Brooke that he has feelings for her. Brooke is going to California for the summer, to be with her parents. Obviously, she was just staying there with Lucas for the rest of the school year. But she does come back in season 3. But Lucas decides to finally admit to her his true feelings, which is about time. And she has the feelings as well, but she's unsure how to react to it, and she's been scared about it, which is obviously makes sense given their past. But it was a good scene. It was a really good scene between that, and the music in this episode is incredible. So that ends with Brooke leaving, and Lucas by himself in the room, and then we obviously see Lucas and Peyton together on the beach by the end of the episode. It says, looks like it's just me and you this summer, which plants the seeds for Lucas and Peyton's friendship in season 3 and their relationship moving forward, because they like each other in season 3 romantically. We have that stuff going on, or not season 3, sorry, season 1. And when the show starts, we have their relationship. And after that kind of ends, towards the end of season 1, they still try to be friends, and then the whole Nikki situation happens, and then going into season 2, they're really not. They're more of exes, kind of. They're not really a strong friendship. They start to build it a little bit when he, gets Jake to come back, but they still don't have a lot of stuff going on in season 2. They're kind of just there. And this led to this scene here at the end of season 2 plants the seeds for their friendship to be stronger in season 3, because they have spent the whole summer together. And obviously other stuff that happens later on in the series, in season 4 and whatnot, in their relationship is all built, not all built, but strongly built because of this summer they spent together, and rebuilding their relationship. So then we get to the big part of this episode, and the part that kept me guessing what was going to happen in the summer, and that's the dealership fire, the epic finale of the finale. So during the episode, someone has given Dan this bottle of scotch. Turns out it's poisoned. About the time that he realizes it's poisoned and starts to fall over, someone comes into the dealership, starts a fire, leaves him for dead. The last shots of the episode is the dealership burning up and Dan in there with it. As well as Haley coming back and surprising Nathan, and just an awesome voiceover quote from Lucas. So there's that. Yeah, I think it was an incredible way to end the season. Amazing cliffhanger, and kind of something they had set up all season, with Dan making so many enemies that eventually this was going to catch up with him. Great line from Whitey, when he, if you play with fire, Danny, you're going to get burned, which ultimately leads to what happens, right? I do think, like I mentioned with the forceful kiss and other things, they go a little bit too far with Dan in season 2 and in season 3 of trying to make him this villain. Take it easy. There's other things you can do to make him a villain and do awful things, but you don't have to make them something that, if you think too hard about it later, because as much as I love his character progression, those little things will bug me, like that forceful kiss, and it's like, there was no, I try to think of the justification of things that he does, and there's nothing for that, so I think they go a little too far, but that's me, but I think it was a very great cliffhanger, great way to end the season, and it was a really good episode, and overall, now that we're done with season 2, I can say that it's still a really good season. It's not a perfect season. It's not as good as season 1, and it's definitely not as good as season 3. But I'm not sure how I feel about it in terms of like compared to season 4 or beyond yet. I have to rewatch the whole series because it's been a while since I sat down and watched like the whole series. Now, I've started rewatching it from different points several times. I watched like from season 5 to season 9, or like started watching season 1 and got through like a couple seasons, and then different things came up in my life, so I ended up stopping and then started over again. And so this time we're watching it all the way through and watching it with Sarah. And like I'm really happy to like see her into the show and her reaction to different things, and not knowing what's going to happen, because we're almost rewatching wise like through the middle of season 3, and I'm trying to catch up with these videos for you guys. But there's lots of stuff that's about to happen in season 3 that are pivotal moments in the show, and I'm curious to see her reaction to that. But yeah, and once I get done with the high school years, once we get done with season 4, we're going to do an episode where I think I'm going to bring Ethan in on this, and we're going to do an episode where we talk about our favorite episodes of the high school years, a ranking of the seasons in general, from 1 through 4, favorite characters, favorite episodes, scenes, all of that. Talk about just like a overall video for the high school years, and then we'll do that of course at the end of the show as well, both for the after high school years and the show overall. But yeah, because I'm trying to think right now just off the bat like some of my favorite episodes so far to this point. Obviously the pilot, this 223, the Leaver's Dance, Life in the Glass House in season 1 is one of my favorite episodes from their junior year. The season 1 finale, a lot of good stuff. I like the I Will Dare episode in season 2. Paul Johansson's episode in season 2, which was the first episode he directed, 17, was a really good episode. Dan's my favorite character in the show. But if I'm looking at just the first 2 seasons, it's a little bit more difficult. I would say that Peyton's probably my favorite character of the first 2 seasons. But Dan's up there as well. I really love Dan. I love Keith and Brooke. Those are my top characters in the first 2 seasons. So the next episode we'll have out for you guys is the first 4 episodes of season 3. So episode 301 through 304. And we're going to start diving into season 3. And I hope to catch you guys next time.